and we will come to them and make our home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teachings. These words you hear me are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. All this I have spoken while still with you. And this is the connection into Acts. But the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything that I have said to you. So my peace I leave with you, I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled. Do not let your heart be afraid. Sometimes we wonder if we're going to miss what God is doing. But if we are waiting with him, if we are abiding with him, if we are simply obedient in that small thing, then we won't ever miss his voice. So I want to assure you, sometimes I think we get in this place where we're chasing after the experience of God rather than just simply obeying his command to wait and pray. And so the disciples default to the last thing that Jesus had told them to do, but it's actually in conjunction with what he had instructed them to do prior to the Passion Week, prior to his week, where really their world was turned upside down. And so I find it interesting in this teaching of John, towards the end of Jesus' time with his disciples, he reminded them to obey, and that they would have the Holy Spirit guide them and teach them and lead them into all peace. The place of obedience is a place of peace because God's peace is there. We can trust his voice. We can trust his leading. And if we know we're walking in what he's called us to, we know that he is walking with us. I wrote this last night. I think this phrase I inserted last night. We can trust that even though all around us it may look like a raging storm, which it sounds like when we were in here just a few minutes ago, in the will of God, we find peace. Yeah, there it is, the thunder rumble right on cue. We find peace no matter what may happen to us. So even though it looks like a raging storm, in God's will, there is peace. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going through a lot of external turmoil, and sometimes even that place where internally we get rattled by it, but when we just then return to those simple acts of obedience, we know we're walking in step with God. Now, obedience isn't something that we like to talk about a lot. We got the dog. We talk about obedience in relation to animals. And maybe as parents, we sometimes talk about obedience in relation to kids. But in our society, this phrase, obey, seems so authoritarian, doesn't it? I mean, where do we, in fact, like I Google pictures